Imagine two people checking the time. One looks at a watch worth $50. The other looks at a watch worth 10 million. Both show the same 12 numbers. Both have hands moving around a dial, and both tell you what time it is. So why would anyone spend millions on something that can be replaced by a smartphone? Because at a certain level, a watch stops being just a watch. It becomes engineering. It becomes art. It becomes history. And sometimes it becomes a symbol of wealth that can fit inside your hand. Luxury watches aren't simply divided by price. They're divided by craftsmanship, materials, mechanical complexity, rarity, and the amount of human skill required to create them. Today, we're climbing the 7 levels of luxury watches, from affordable timepieces to mechanical masterpieces worth millions of dollars. Level 1. Affordable watches. This is where almost every watch journey begins. At this level, the goal is simple. Tell the time, survive everyday use, and look good while doing it. A watch costing $50, $100, or a few $100s can already offer surprisingly good quality. Quartz movements keep time using a battery and electronic regulation. Mechanical watches at this level may use relatively simple automatic movements. The designs are practical. The materials are usually affordable. The production process is highly standardized, and that's exactly why the price stays low. Thousands, sometimes millions of similar watches can be produced. But there's something interesting about this level. The watch may be inexpensive, but it introduces you to an idea that has survived for centuries. You wear something on your wrist, and mechanical or electronic technology quietly works without demanding your attention. For most people, that's enough. But eventually, some buyers start asking a different question. Not does it tell time, but who made it? And that's where luxury begins. Level 2. Entry-level luxury. Now, the watch starts becoming a statement. Prices can move from several $100s into the thousands. The materials improve. The finishing becomes more refined. The bracelets feel heavier. The cases become more carefully polished, and mechanical movements begin receiving much more attention. Automatic watches at this level can contain dozens of tiny components, all working together beneath the dial. A rotor moves with your wrist. That motion winds the mainspring. The stored energy is released gradually through a complex system of gears, and the hands move without a battery. But the biggest difference isn't always visible. It's the attention to detail. Edges are cleaner. Surfaces are more carefully finished. Dials become more sophisticated, and the name on the dial starts carrying real weight. At this level, people aren't just buying a timekeeper. They're buying craftsmanship, design, and reputation. But the next level takes mechanical watchmaking much more seriously. Level 3. Swiss luxury. Now we enter the world most people associate with luxury watches, Switzerland. For generations, Swiss watchmaking has built a reputation around precision, craftsmanship, and mechanical tradition. At this level, watches can cost several thousand to tens of thousands of dollars, and the details become much more sophisticated. Cases may use high-grade steel, precious metals, ceramic, or titanium. Dials can contain multiple layers. Indexes may be individually applied. Hands are carefully finished, and beneath everything, the movement becomes a work of engineering. Some watches include chronographs, allowing the wearer to measure elapsed time. Others include GMT functions, allowing travelers to track another time zone. Some include diving bezels, power reserve indicators, or moon phase displays. And then there's the finishing. Polished surfaces, brushed surfaces, decorative patterns, anglage, where movement edges are carefully beveled and polished. Even components that almost nobody will ever see can receive hours of attention. This is where a watch starts becoming something you don't simply wear. You inspect it, you admire it, you turn it over and look through the case back just to watch the movement working. But there are watches where even this level of craftsmanship isn't enough, because some collectors aren't looking for luxury. They're looking for horology. Level 4. High horology. This is where watchmaking becomes engineering at an entirely different level. The term high horology generally refers to exceptional mechanical watchmaking, where movement design, complication, finishing, and craftsmanship become central to the experience. A watch at this level might cost $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, or considerably more. And suddenly, the movement itself becomes the star. Imagine hundreds of tiny components assembled with extraordinary precision inside something smaller than your palm. Every wheel, spring, bridge, and lever has a purpose, and some watches add mechanical complications that dramatically increase the difficulty of construction. A perpetual calendar, for example, can mechanically account for different month lengths and leap year. A chronograph can measure elapsed time. A power reserve indicator shows how much energy remains in the movement. And then there are minute repeaters, which can mechanically mechanically chime the time. At this level, watchmakers aren't simply assembling products. They're solving mechanical problems inside incredibly small spaces, and that creates a new kind of luxury: complexity. But even complex watches can become more extraordinary, because eventually, the buyer isn't asking for more features. They're asking for something almost nobody else owns. Level 5. Haute horlogerie. Welcome to Haute horlogerie. Here, the watch begins to resemble a miniature sculpture. Prices can move from tens of thousands into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Production becomes extremely limited. Some watches are produced in small annual quantities. Others are made as individual commissions. The customer may have a role in selecting material, colors, finishes, or complications. Precious metals become common: gold, platinum, and in some cases, rare stones and diamonds. But here's the important part: expensive materials alone don't create a great watch. The real value often comes from what happens to those materials. A plain piece of metal can be transformed through hundreds of hours of hand finishing. A movement can contain decorative techniques that require extraordinary patience. Bridges may be beveled by hand. Tiny screws can be polished. Engraving can be performed manually with patterns created specifically for one piece. And the dial can become its own miniature canvas. Enamel, guilloche, hand engraving, gem setting. Each technique requires a different kind of specialist. At this level, the watch is no longer simply a luxury accessory. It's a collaboration between engineer, watchmaker, artist, and collector. But there is still another level, because the rarest watches aren't necessarily the most complicated. Sometimes, the most valuable thing a watch can have is rarity. Level 6. Ultra-rare timepieces. At this level, you can't simply walk into a store and buy the watch you want. The watches may be produced in extremely small numbers. Some are limited editions, some are made for important anniversaries, some are unique pieces, and some become valuable because of their history. This is where the world of luxury watches begins to overlap with collecting. A watch associated with a famous person, an important event, or a significant moment in watchmaking history can become dramatically more valuable. The original retail price may tell only part of the story. Condition matters. Provenance matters. Original parts matters. Documentation matters. And sometimes, the story behind the watch is worth more than the materials inside it. Imagine two nearly identical watches. One belonged to an ordinary collector. The other belonged to a legendary figure and comes with documented history. The second watch could command an enormous premium. This is why serious collectors don't simply ask, how much does it cost? They ask, where did it come from? And then we reach the final level, the world where watches can become million-dollar objects. Level 7. Million-dollar masterpieces. At the top of the pyramid, we leave ordinary luxury behind. These are watches created as exceptional works of horological art. Prices can reach $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, and in extraordinary cases, far beyond that. Some are covered with extraordinary quantities of diamonds. Others contain extremely rare gemstones. Some are mechanical masterpieces containing complications that took years to develop. And some are valuable because they combine craftsmanship, rarity, history, and an extraordinary story. One of the most famous examples of the extreme luxury watch market is the Graf Diamonds Hallucination, a jeweled masterpiece reported to be valued around $55 million. But here's the strange part. The most expensive watches aren't necessarily the watches you'd want to wear every day. Some are closer to wearable art. They exist to demonstrate what human craftsmanship can achieve when price becomes almost irrelevant.